All right, so you won't even have to look at the camera. You just angle towards me.
Okay.
We'll just talk with each other. Let's see. So we can just start by, can you go ahead and tell me about what happened here last night?
Last night there was a call came in. It was about 7:30 last night. A call for a grass fire, a bush on fire next to the building. When we got here, the fire had already reached to the attic.
And do we now know what may have caused that fire?
I believe there was probably a discarded cigarette butt next to the bush right there up against the building that spread into the building and traveled up the building on the outside, on the inside of that corner to the attic.
And how difficult was it, or was it difficult at all to control something like this last night?
The challenge was locating the fire and finding it. Being in the attic, it's very hard to access, and then being able to actually find it. Once we finally were able to access the roof, we were able to extinguish it completely.
And I saw that we had help from other fire departments like Nacogdoches. Was this something so big that just required a lot of extra help?
Well, our ladder truck is out of service at the moment for repairs. That's the reason that we had Hudson come with their ladder truck so we could access the roof. And then we had called Nacogdoches originally for their ladder truck, and theirs was out of service as well. So they went ahead and sent an engine crew down for manpower. The heat, the extreme heat lately, we try to get as many people on scene as we can, because the heat just don't want to get anybody too exhausted with the heat and all that stuff. Just want people to be able to rotate out.
And do you have any advice, just for the dangers of cigarette butts and making sure they're put out properly?
Cigarette butts are horrible and notorious for starting fires in mulch and grassy areas. A lot of flower beds and stuff have the fine mulch. It's very easy to catch on fire, especially with as dry as it is, and then all the vegetation, it's so dry. Any little bit of a spark can ignite a grass fire like that.
I'm just making sure I'm checking my notes here. Can you just tell me a little bit more about, how something like this and the burn ban can correlate?
Well, anytime with the burn ban, normally the burn ban is bigger fires, people starting, to burn brush and stuff like that. And especially for the last week, we've had pretty good winds, and it doesn't take much for one small ember to get out of a contained area and spread.
So would you say that, a cigarette butt like that, a burn ban could have really just amplified that?
Well, a burn ban really would have had no effect on, on this right here, because there's nothing that, you shouldn't throw a cigarette down on the ground to start with, which that's littering, and you should never throw an open flame on the ground, especially in a flower bed with mulch and stuff like that, to where it could easily catch a fire. But the burn ban wouldn't have affected this in any way, but you have to be diligent, and you should never throw your cigarette butts on the ground. When you put them down, stomp them out, put them in water, stuff like that.
If you would, Ozzie, I guess say something along the lines of, if we weren't in a severe drought in this case, maybe the cigarette butt wouldn't have caused all of this, because the mulch may have been a little more moist.
Gotcha.
So.
True. Yeah. The severe drought with the however many 15-20 days of consecutive 100-degree weather has dried everything out, especially the mulch. And in normal times, without all that, the mulch probably wouldn't have been as ignitable, and the fire wouldn't have readily have started with the cigarette butt. But there is always a possibility that it could happen.
And I know you mentioned towing change. chains in the press release, and I would just like to know a little bit more about that. Can you elaborate on how towing chains could?
Well, a lot of your trailer chains are too long and they drag the ground, and when they drag the ground they spark. They'll emit sparks and throw the sparks out into the high dead vegetation and start a fire the same way.
Is that something you all see often?
We actually see it fairly often around the loop on the highways and stuff like that. When we get a lot of fires that are in the medians and stuff like that, that's normally where it's coming from.
You want to mention the bearing fire, and that's how that started.
No, I don't remember that one.
2011, the 20,000 acre wildfire in Trinity County.
It was a bearing fire.
The bearing fire.
What was it, a bearing that
A wheel bearing that the spark. Yeah,
in 2011?
2011. Yep.
In 2011 in Trinity County, the bearing fire, it was started from a wheel bearing, and it, what was it, 20,000 acres was a result of that. All over the state, all over the country, lightning strikes, any kind of a spark at all, and especially as dry as it is, and the rain from the previous years with the high vegetation, especially on our part of the state, and it's all dead now. Fires just run rampant.
And I think a lot of viewers, I don't think they may understand just how quickly a fire can spread by something so small. Can you just elaborate on the time it takes for something like this to happen here at the hotel?
Well, a cigarette butt, when you throw it on the ground, it doesn't ignite immediately and catch stuff on fire. So it could sit there and smolder 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 20 or 30 minutes. Once that smolders and it gets bigger and consumes more fuel, and it starts getting bigger. In this case, it burned through the side of the building, and in that corner where it's burned up, it's basically a chimney that went straight to the roof. So it burnt straight to the top, and from the time of the 911 call, from the time that we got on scene, it was already in the attic, which was a matter of 5 minutes probably.
And did you guys assist any with the evacuation? Did anybody have to be rescued or anything like that?
When we got on scene, our command had the police department, PD guys go in and evacuate people. There was, I think, 2 different families that had to be brought out. They were already on their way out, but they were assisted out. Luckily, the hotel at that time, there wasn't very many people inside.
And you know about how many people were able to get out or had to get out?
There was a family of 2 or 3, and then a single person and another one. And then the staff, at least 1 person.
And is there anything else that you'd like to tell me about what happened here last night? Burn ban, any tips for viewers that I just haven't asked you about?
Don't think there's anything that we haven't covered already.
Okay, yeah, just making sure. So, you know, we've hit all the topics.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.